the year. I will let you know that, tax deductions are always good. A couple other things. If you would turn your phones off, we are live streaming tonight, so we don't want to have a lot of noises. We have 3 different restrooms. One here in the venue, which probably don't want to use during the show. It's your choice. There's another one through the instrument store on the back wall, and another one upstairs if you want to get your steps in. If you are back in the neighborhood anytime before January 5th, we're also doing a sock drive for the transition projects. So we have a sold-out show tonight. I appreciate all of you, your patience as we try to make sure that all the people who bought tickets got seats. And we have a big crowd out in the store. Also, this show will be out on YouTube after the show is done, and anytime you want to go watch it, you can do that. You just go to Artichoke Music Livestream, and you can watch this later. So I'm going to turn it over. I just forgot your name. Margaret. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Margaret, and then she's going to take it from here and introduce all the wonderful musicians. Thank you again for coming.
Welcome to Classical Revolution PDX Bachxing Day, celebration of the Bach family. Welcome to our online audience viewing via live stream. My name is Margaret Bloomfield. I'll be your MC for tonight's musical adventure. This is one of our most popular recurring events and has been happening since the beginning of our nonprofit organization in 2007. So I want to say just a little bit about who we are and who's performing. We're a community of music teachers, students, professional musicians, amateurs, and everything in between, musicians with performance degrees, members of multiple regional community orchestras. Ages range from early teen to, I don't think they might want me to say it, but a total of 21 musicians. The musicians in the community have often met and developed musical relationships through our monthly chamber jams, about which I'll say more at the intermission. The breadth of our musician community speaks to our ethos, which is that classical music is for all, not just musicians from conservatories, and that it should be offered in affordable venues such as this one, where the audience can interact with the musicians. Feel free after the program, therefore, to stick around and speak with our musicians and with the board of Classical Revolution, and I'll say who they are at the end. Now a few words about our program tonight, which combines multiple members of the Bach family, real and fictional. 2 of the pieces are attributed to one Bach, but their composers are to this day unclear. 6 of the 12 acts also feature interpretations on instruments for which the pieces were not composed. Some of these acts required original arrangements by our musicians. You'll even hear some pieces performed twice on different instruments, one piece performed twice on different instruments. Several acts are performed using instruments you may have heard but never seen, or may have never heard before. One act performs pieces on 2 instruments that were composed for only one. In addition to new arrangements, we were to include, and actually we're going to begin with, an improvised performance. That musician got ill today and is unable to attend. But he was going to improvise on a theme and in the style of Bach, which would have been lovely. And hopefully we'll get a video later and be able to post that on our channel for you to hear. So we're going to jump into the second act on the program that you have, and call to the stage Elijah Barish with his ukulele. And while he's getting settled, I'll say a few words about this. J.S. Bach fathered 20 children. The first when he was 23, the last when he was 57. 10 of them died before reaching adulthood. His fifth child, Carl Philipp Emanuel, the most gifted, was a highly original composer of symphonies, keyboard, and choral music. Building on the Baroque training that he received as a boy, he became one of the foremost clavier players in Europe and the leading keyboard teacher of his time. He formed a musical bridge between the Baroque and the classical eras. Mozart said of Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, "He is the father, we are the children." This march that Elijah's going to perform was first published in the 1725 second notebook of J.S. Bach's second wife, Anna Magdalena Bach, which contains clavier works by J.S., J.C., and C.P.E., family friends, and other unknown writers. So, we don't know who wrote this definitively. It was previously attributed to J.S. Bach, who lived from 1685 to 1750. But then some started to think that it was actually his son who composed this, Carl Philipp Emanuel, about whom I just spoke, who lived from 1714 to 88, which meant that he was 11 when he composed this. As I bring up Elijah's teacher, Brian Fergus, with his own ukulele, I'll tell you that the first piece that Brian is going to play, Bach's Largo, that is J.S. Bach's Largo, was written for harpsichord continuo. There's evidence that this is based on a Telemann concerto and that Bach intended this movement as an elaboration of his friend Telemann's original. The second piece Brian will play is J.S. Bach's Gavotte in number 2 from the 6th cello suite. Rostropovich himself called this suite a symphony for solo cello and characterized its D major tonality as evoking joy and triumph. While Ellen Berkowitz and Frank Kenny, flute and bassoon, are setting up, I'll tell you that J.S. Bach's 18th child, Johann Christian, 1735 to 82, also a well-known classical composer, was also an influence on Mozart's concertos. Concerti, really. J.C. composed cantatas, orchestral works, keyboard music, operas, and symphonies, which sounded very different in style from his father's Baroque works. J.S. Bach was already 50 when he was born, and musical styles of the time were growing increasingly classical. These inventions were composed in 6 years, 1717 to 23, by Johann Christian's father, J.S. Bach, for harpsichord as teaching pieces for the development of two voices. Not voices, but voices on the instrument. Bach wrote them for his eldest son.
All right. We switched the order of the last two, by the way.
When players need water. I'm going to bring up to the stage a duo. We are blessed to have a lot of flute in the house tonight. So Jesse Isaac on flute, Lee Mellick on keyboard. The piece that they're going to play is of unknown authorship. It was attributed to Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach in the 18th century, then to J.S. Bach in the 19th century. In the 20th century, studies have concluded that neither one wrote it, or that it was a collaborative teaching effort between father and son. So, a sonata in G minor by So the next name that you see on the program isn't a Bach, right? What's he doing there? Well, we wanted to honor the composer Peter Schickele, 1935 to January 16th, 24. He was an American composer, musical educator, and parodist, best known for comedy albums featuring his music, which he presented as being composed by the fictional P.D.Q. Bach. What does P.D.Q. stand for? We got some ideas in the audience. Any loud ones? Pretty damn quick, right. The character of P.D.Q. Bach, the forgotten youngest and the oddest, in quotations, of the 20-odd children, was invented in 1965. Some of you may remember the long-running weekly radio program called Schickele Mix, hosted by Schickele. In the early 90s, Schickele's P.D.Q. Bach recordings earned him 4 consecutive wins for the Grammy Award for Best Comedy Album. Schickele also, however, wrote much serious music under his own name. Portland's Chamber Music Northwest, some of you may go to their concerts, commissioned and performed a work within the last decade, and Schickele was at Reed's Call Auditorium for the premiere. He also composed music for folk musicians, including Joan Baez, the film scores, multiple film scores, and was an accomplished bassoonist. He did, however, love composing fun, light-hearted pieces for all kinds of musicians to play, and for that reason, he fits right in for us. The following suite of pieces was composed under his own name. And he wrote about it. I was doing a P.D.Q. Bach concert with the Grand Rapids Symphony. Somehow the tuba part for one of the pieces never arrived. The orchestra's librarian, who was also one of its oboists, offered to copy it out from the score. And when I asked her how she wanted to be paid, cash, P.D.Q. Bach records, sheet music, she said, whatever you want. Meanwhile, she had mentioned that she played in a trio consisting of flute, oboe, and cello, and I started getting ideas for a little piece employing those 3 instruments. That piece, called the Not So Grand, Not So Rapid Waltz, turned out to be her payment. After I finished it, I knew I wanted to make it part of a larger work. Dream Dances, the next piece you're going to hear, was composed on August 26, 1988, and premiered on May 17, 1989 in Brooklyn, New York. Welcome, Michelle, Connolly, Jerry Lester, and Harry Gilbert.
You okay for room?
Yeah, great.
We're just going to give you a 10-minute intermission during which you can get another drink or some snacks. Classical Revolution PDX, our programming generally includes one paid event per year, collaborations with other nonprofits, and our monthly chamber jam. If you flip to the back of your program, you'll see it's at the Waypost, the second Sunday of every month. At 7 o'clock, the Waypost Inn. We welcome you all there. The other part of the back of the program has a QR code, and you can use that to donate to us before the end of the year. Oregon Cultural Trust, we're one of their organizations, and so they will match 100% up to a certain point. If you donate via their website. So we'll see you back in 10 minutes. I'm going to also ask musicians to spread the word among the 21 of us to hang out to the end of the show, because we're going to bring you all back on stage with pictures. Thank you. See you in 10. If we don't have too much else to accomplish at the bar, let's call folks back to their seats and get started with the second half. We're going to bring up next a young cellist, Sabrina Fotinakis, who's going to play J.S. Bach, Prelude from the First Cello Suite. Our next act is another flute and piano duo, also a sonata by J.S. Bach, but this time G minor. Instead of G minor from the first half of the program, we have B minor as the key. Please welcome Clark Green on flute and Chris Schindler on piano. This is the only complete Bach. Oh, I'm not seeing them coming up. Okay. Yay. It's the only complete Bach flute sonata that survives in the autograph manuscript, though clues in the score indicate it may have been intended originally for a different instrument and or a different key. Just a personal note, I'd like to wish Chris Schindler a wonderful happy birthday. We enter the, for Americans, unusual instrument part of the program here. I'm going to bring up Brennan. Kessenich or Kessenich? I'm not sure which syllable. Kessenich, okay. With, and here's another one I don't know how to pronounce, Hardingfele? Hardingfele? That's a Hardingfele, a Norwegian fiddle. And the slight change to the program, Brennan's elected to replace the saraband with the other gavotte. So you'll have the gavotte 1 and 2 from the 6th cello suite. You heard the second gavotte in the earlier part of the program. So I just want to say a little bit about the instrument and then ask Brennan a question or two about it. This fiddle is considered the national instrument of Norway. In many folk tales, the hardingfele is associated with the devil. In fact, many good players were said to have been taught to play by the devil, if not by the nix, which is a Germanic water sprite, or spirit. During religious revivals in the 19th century, many fiddles, regular and hardened, were destroyed or hidden both by fiddlers and lay people who thought that it would be best for the soul that the fiddles be burned, as it was viewed as a sinful instrument that encouraged wild dances, drinking, and fights. Just make sure that we maintain calm here as this is being played. Can you tell us what makes that different from, say, a violin?
So this looks like a fancy violin. It actually mine has 5 extra strings that run underneath the fingerboard. Those are all resonant strings, so it sounds very different from a regular violin. Also because the strings are usually not the heavy metal strings that go on the violin. They're much lighter. And in general, it's just a very light instrument. So I find myself comparing the sound of a violin more to a knife, and this is more to a cloth, and how I have to think about playing it. The main difference structurally is those extra sympathetic strings, and for whatever reason, we always make these really fancy. They traditionally have a dragon carved on top and all the extra inlay.
Is that mother of pearl? Or, wow, I'll get out of your way. I'm going to bring Ben Drayson and David Drayson, father and son duo, up to the stage on theremin and piano. So first, while they're setting up, let's just take a little minute to center the theremin, I think. We want to talk about the instrument. Some of us may be entirely unfamiliar with the theremin. How many would that apply to? So you have no mental image of what it is. How many have some vague idea of what a theremin is? Okay. How many think you've heard it? Okay. And where do you think you heard it? Museum. Oh, okay, museum. Any other place? Exactly. Certain TV. Yes, Star Trek, exactly. So I thought we could ask Ben a few questions about how it works and what the most challenging aspect of playing it is. And I'll have one later, one question more after those two.
So how does it work?
How does it work?
It's based on electrical capacitance. It was invented by a Russian radio engineer who was working on use of radio antenna as detector, motion detectors, basically. There's two antenna. This one controls pitch. This one controls volume. And that's between the two of those, you can make a wide variety of sounds.
Okay. And what's the most challenging aspect of playing it?
It's really hard to play in tune. Imagine playing a violin with invisible strings, maybe something like that.
Okay, so what balances that out, the difficulty of finding pitch on that? What's the most rewarding aspect?
I would say a lot of musicians, advanced musicians especially, feel like they are very connected to their instrument when playing. It's almost like it's a part of their body. I would say that experience is more accessible on a theremin because it literally is reacting to your entire body's electrical capacitance. Wow. Also, it's a fairly new instrument. It's still being developed. The techniques are being explored, and so if you want to be part of the experience of developing something that doesn't necessarily have a full repertoire, full set of etudes, it's kind of fun in that way.
So you're going to be playing two pieces for us. One of them is the Ave Maria. Most people know. But this one is, there's two of you. So Gounod, Charles Gounod, the Frenchman, wrote a melody which he superimposed over a mostly unaltered prelude from the Well-Tempered Clavier Book 1, the first prelude. So his original, that is Gounod's original publication, utilized French lyrics, but the Latin version, published 6 years later, has become the dominant favorite. So that's the description of the first piece, and the second piece will be Air on the G string. Mine's out of the gutters there. Yeah. Air on the G string. The air on the G string was originally just the second movement from Bach's original orchestral suite, number 3. And the violinist August Wilhelm arranged it in 1871 for violin with accompaniment. On the score, he wrote auf der G-Seite, above the staff, for the solo violin, which means on the G string, which gave the arrangement its nickname. His exact version is rarely played anymore, but his score instruction has been retained as the supposed title. Our next performer will close a bookend opened by our theremin player, who performed the first prelude from the Well-Tempered Clavier, Book 1. Lisa Corcoran, welcome her to the stage, please, will perform the final entry in the Well-Tempered Clavier books, the Prelude and Fugue number 24. that brings us to our last act. Our finale combines two pieces, one by P.D.Q. Bach, so that position is justly reserved for him, and by J.S. Bach. So we end the program with an act that begins with a work published by the forgotten Bach son. Among the fictional P.D.Q. Bach forgotten repertoire are such masterpieces as The Abduction of Figaro, The Unbegun Symphony, Pervertimento for bagpipes, bicycle and balloons, Canine Cantata, Wachet auf, Good King Kong Looked Out, and the Trite Quintet, O Little Town of Hackensack, A Little Nightmare Music, and Einstein on the Fritz, which was a parody of Schickele's Juilliard classmate, Philip Glass, which reminds me of a joke. Knock, knock. Who's there? Knock, knock. Who's there? Knock, knock. Knock, knock. Knock, knock. Knock, knock. Knock, knock. Philip Glass. So our first act was an improvisation, intended to be an improvisation, though you'll remember that he was ill. Our final act pairs an original arrangement by Corey Johnson, sitting there in the middle, of a fugue from the Well-Tempered Clavier Book 1, with an original arrangement of a fugue from P.D.Q. Bach's Short-Tempered Clavier, whose full title is in your program, but it bears reading out. Preludes and Fugues. Preludes and Fugues in all the major and minor keys, except the really hard ones. As easy as 3.14. Both fugues were written for solo piano and are arranged for 2 mandolins, 1 mandola, that bigger one, right? And a guitar. Listen for the popular children's playground taunt melody in the P.D.Q. Bach piece, originally made up to go along with a belly dancing demonstration at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. I'm going to ask these musicians to stay on the stage and welcome back up to the stage all the performers who are still in the building. Tall ones at the back. And anyone who wants to take pictures, we welcome that. You can send them to us, and we'll post them. All right, 1, 2, 3, bow. We wish you all a wonderful holiday season and happy 2025. Come to our chamber jam. That's January 12th at 7 o'clock at the Waypost Inn. And safe home. Good night.